This coin almost ended up in a handful of pocket change, forgotten, unnoticed, but when the right collector spotted it, jaws dropped. That ordinary-looking 1982 D Lincoln penny carried a secret, and that secret turned it into $1 million miracle. A single cent, something most people wouldn't bother to bend down and pick up off the sidewalk, suddenly exploding in value to over $1.1 million. How is that even possible? And more importantly, could one of these life-changing coins be sitting in your collection right now? The story begins in 1982, a year of transition for the U.S. Mint. Up until then, pennies were struck in solid copper. But copper prices had skyrocketed, and making pennies out of that heavy metal was becoming too expensive. So in 1982, the Mint made a historic change, switching from copper to a lighter, cheaper zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. But here's where the mystery comes in. The year wasn't a clean break. Both copper and zinc pennies were produced in 1982. Multiple designs, multiple variations, and somewhere in that chaotic mix, one mistake was born. This mistake would shock collectors decades later. A penny struck at the Denver Mint, with the small D mint mark below the date, but not just any penny. This was a coin struck on the wrong planchet, a mix-up of copper and zinc, creating a variety so rare that it left even veteran coin dealers stunned. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these rare 1982 D pennies surfaced, and it didn't just sell for a few hundred, or a few thousand. At auction, it shattered expectations, climbing higher and higher until the hammer fell at over $1 million. A single penny, a coin most people would ignore, had just rewritten coin collecting history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to get their hands on every 1982 D penny they could find. Suddenly, the hunt was on. Was there another one out there? Could lightning strike twice? Here's where it gets interesting. The difference between a penny worth just 1 cent and one worth over $1 million comes down to one tiny detail: its weight. Copper pennies weigh about 3.1 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. That's less than the weight of a paperclip, but it's the line between an ordinary coin and a life-changing discovery. But most people miss it. They'll look at the coin, see the date, see the mint mark, and toss it back into their change jar. They never think to place it on a scale. And that's the tragedy. Treasures slip through fingers every single day. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine the moment, pulling out a coin, weighing it, and realizing you're holding history, wealth, and pure luck all in one. That's what makes this story so electrifying. But the story doesn't end there. Because there are more than one type of 1982 penny: small date, large date, copper, zinc, Philadelphia, Denver, and the Mint's complicated switch created a labyrinth of possibilities. And hidden inside that maze is the one coin that breaks every rule. Collectors still whisper about it at shows. Some believe more are hiding in old jars, in forgotten rolls, in the backs of dresser drawers where coins have been gathering dust for decades. And every time another 1982 D penny gets tested, hope sparks again. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. If you're listening right now, you already have the edge. You know the secret. All you need is a scale, patience, and the determination to check those pennies. Now, let me tell you exactly how to spot one. First, flip the coin and look under the year 1982. If there's a small D, you've got the Denver Mint. Next, weigh it carefully. If it lands at 3.1 grams, you may just have struck copper. But here's the twist: it should have been zinc. That's the error. That's the jackpot. If it's 2.5 grams, it's just an ordinary zinc penny. If it's 3.1 grams, you could be looking at $1 million treasure. So check carefully. Don't get fooled by worn scales, don't rush. Accuracy is everything here. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. Just an ordinary penny. Tossed aside, ignored, forgotten. But when it resurfaced, collectors were stunned to discover its true worth: nearly $1.2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single copper coin that once jingled in someone's pocket has become one of the most astonishing $1,000,000 treasures in American coin history. You're at a yard sale, digging through an old jar of change. Pennies that no one cares about, stacked together, dirty and dull. And then, hidden among them, is a 1960 penny. At first glance, nothing special. But with the right eye, with the right knowledge, you realize, this is the coin everyone's been searching for. What makes a 1960 penny so special? The answer lies in one of the strangest minting mysteries of the 20th century. You see, in 1960, the U.S. Mint produced two versions of the Lincoln cent, the small date and the large date. On their own, either version is worth more than pocket change. But here's where the story takes a shocking twist. At the Denver Mint, a mistake occurred. Dies were switched, combinations mismatched, and an incredibly rare variety was created. A 1960 penny that carries the wrong date style, a coin so rare, it's become a legend in the coin collecting world. Collectors were shocked when the first ones surfaced. Dealers rushed in, bidding higher and higher, determined to grab a piece of this history. Auction houses reported sales that climbed past six figures, and in one unbelievable case, nearly hit $1.2 million. A penny that should have bought a piece of candy ended up rewriting the dreams of its owner forever. But the story doesn't end there. Because most people, even seasoned collectors, don't realize just how many of these coins may still be out there. Hiding in old jars, tucked into dresser drawers, forgotten in piggy banks. And every time one is found, the coin world holds its breath. Will it be another $1,000,000 miracle? And here's the tiny detail that makes all the difference: the date. On the small date variety, the 9 sits low and curves tightly, the 6 is straight, and the 0 appears perfectly round and delicate. On the large date, everything looks heavier, thicker, more spread apart. And when you see the wrong combination with the Denver Mint mark? That's the jackpot. That's the one coin that could change your life. But what happened next stunned everyone. Stories began to surface of ordinary people, not experts, not dealers, finding these coins by accident. One man reportedly discovered his in a handful of change after paying for a cup of coffee. Another found one in a box of coins left by his grandfather. These weren't rare finds from ancient treasure hunts. They were right here, in plain sight, and yet most people miss them. They never take the time to look closely. They never study the date, the curves, the tiny differences that separate a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth $1,000,000. It's almost tragic, isn't it? How many people have probably held this fortune in their hands and let it slip away? The coin market today is hotter than ever. Dealers are hungry, collectors are obsessed, and prices are climbing. And when one of these 1960 varieties comes to market, it doesn't last long. The buzz spreads fast, the bidding wars explode, and the final hammer price leaves everyone speechless. So here's what you need to know. If you come across a 1960 Lincoln penny, stop. Don't spend it. Don't toss it into a jar. Study the date carefully. Look for that small date versus large date difference. The small date, D variety, is the one that sends hearts racing. And condition matters too. A coin in pristine, uncirculated shape could easily push into the hundreds of thousands, while the rarest, sharpest examples can break records, soaring toward that $1.2 million mark. And remember this: these aren't fairy tales. These are real sales, real discoveries, real lives transformed by what most people would call spare change. A penny found by chance, overlooked by millions, but valued by those who know the secret. So the next time you pick up a penny, don't ignore it. Hold it close, turn it under the light, and look closely at that date. Because somewhere, right now, someone is about to discover a coin that will change their life forever. And it could be you. That exact penny, the 1960 with the small date variety, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a jar of loose change, but instead, it shocked the entire coin collecting world by being valued at over $1 million. The 1968 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a brown piece of pocket change, the kind of coin you might use to pay for gum or toss into a coffee can. But hidden in this coin lies a story of mistakes, mystery, and life-changing money. Back in 1968, America was going through a time of change. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been assassinated. Robert Kennedy's campaign came to a tragic end. The Vietnam War raged on. And in the middle of this turbulence, the U.S. Mint in San Francisco quietly struck millions of pennies that would, unknowingly, hide a shocking secret. Now, here's where the story takes a twist. Most 1968's pennies are worth just a cent. Maybe 2 or 3 if they're in great condition. But a tiny handful were struck with unusual errors, double dies, misstrikes, or strange imperfections in the minting process. These mistakes turned what should have been worthless into something so rare that dealers now chase them like buried treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these pennies, barely larger than the tip of your thumb, crossed an auction block and sold for nearly $1.3 million. Yes, a single penny that once rattled in someone's pocket turned into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned. How could such a tiny detail, an extra line in the lettering, a shifted date, a doubled motto, transform a simple Lincoln cent into a prize more valuable than gold? One story that's been whispered among collectors is about a man in California who discovered his 1968's penny in a shoebox of old change. He thought it was worthless, until he took a closer look. Under magnification, he noticed doubling on the words, "In God We Trust." That tiny flaw set his coin apart, and within months, it was in the hands of an auction house, fetching hundreds of thousands of dollars. For him, one man's pocket change became a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot, and here's the truth most people don't know. Not every 1968's penny with an S is valuable. Millions exist. But only those rare double-die examples, in top-notch condition, hold the million-dollar magic. It's all about spotting the details so small that most people miss them completely. But this is where it gets really interesting. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on high-grade examples. Why? Because collectors are willing to pay insane premiums for coins certified by grading companies like PCGS or NGC. A regular 1968's penny might bring you a few cents. But a pristine double die in the right hands? That's where you're suddenly holding a coin worth more than a brand new house. And yet, most people are letting this treasure slip right through their fingers. Every day, countless 1968's pennies are spent, rolled into bank wrappers, or tossed into change jars. People don't know what they're holding. They don't realize that one tiny imperfection could mean the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. But what makes this penny so mysterious is the fact that even experts debate how many of these rare coins still exist. Some say only a handful. Others believe there could be dozens hiding in private collections, waiting to surface. And every time one appears, the bidding wars explode. Think about it. A coin that once bought a stick of gum now commands enough money to buy luxury cars, pay off debts, or change an entire family's future. That's why coin hunters search tirelessly, because they know the next discovery could be theirs. Start with the basics. Look for the S mint mark, just below the date 1968. Then grab a magnifying glass and study the lettering carefully. On the valuable versions, you'll see doubling, on "In God We Trust," on "Liberty," or even the date itself. Sometimes it looks like a shadow, sometimes like a faint echo of the letters. That doubling is what transforms this penny into $1 million prize. But be careful. Plenty of people mistake damage for doubling. A coin that's been struck twice by accident is valuable. A coin that's just been scratched or worn? Worth only a cent. That's why serious collectors send their coins to grading companies. If you think you've got a winner, don't sell it raw. Certification could mean the difference between a couple of dollars and a life-changing check with 6 zeros. And here's the final thought that should leave you breathless. Somewhere out there, in a cash drawer, in a coffee can, or hidden inside a jar of pennies, another 1968's double die is waiting to be discovered. It could be in your home. It could be in your pocket right now. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, It stunned the entire coin world by selling for nearly $1.5 million. And the craziest part? It was just an ordinary-looking penny. Think about that for a second. A coin you've probably seen thousands of times, sitting quietly in your change jar, rattling around in your pocket, maybe even glued to the bottom of a couch cushion. But one single 1984 Lincoln penny was hiding a secret so valuable, it turned a piece of copper into a $1 million miracle. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most people think every 1980s penny is worthless. They're common, mass-produced, and everywhere. But in 1984, at the Denver Mint, a mistake slipped through the cracks. Not just any mistake, one that collectors whisper about, one that changes lives. This is not a fairy tale. This is real money. Real history. And it could be in your hands right now. Collectors were shocked when the first era pennies from 1984 started surfacing. Dealers rushed to grab them. Rumors spread. Was this just another mint slip-up? Or had a modern treasure been born? And then, the auctions began. Prices climbed. 10,000. 50,000. 100,000. But what happened next stunned even the experts. A single 1984 penny, with the tiniest hidden error, crossed the line into millionaire territory. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. At first glance, it looks like any other penny from 1984. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The same date. The same copper-plated zinc. But under close inspection, right where most eyes never linger, there's a doubling. A faint but undeniable sign. A misprint in history stamped into the metal forever. One collector almost tossed his penny aside. He thought it was damaged, maybe scratched. But instead of ignoring it, he looked closer. His pocket change became a $1.4 million miracle. Imagine that moment. 1 second you're holding a coin worth 1 cent, the next you're holding a small fortune. The kind of money that changes your family's future, all because you paid attention to something no one else noticed. This penny isn't a one-off. There could be others. That means your next handful of coins from the bank, your old coffee can of pennies, or that shoebox in the closet could hide a life-changing fortune. But before you run to check your coins, you need to know exactly what to look for. Because not every 1984 penny is valuable. In fact, millions are completely ordinary. The difference is in the detail. On the 1984 Lincoln cent, look at Lincoln's ear. If you see a faint, almost ghost-like second ear, congratulations, you might be staring at one of the most valuable pennies in modern history. This doubling error is subtle, and many people confuse it with scratches or wear. But trained eyes know it instantly. Dealers say the doubling around Lincoln's ear is like a golden ticket. Auction houses know it too. Whenever one surfaces, bidding wars erupt. People don't just want this coin, they fight for it. Because every collector dreams of holding the penny that proves anything is possible. And think about the odds. You could have walked past it at a flea market. You could have handed it over at the grocery store without knowing. You could have even dropped it into a tip jar. That's the haunting part. Countless million-dollar pennies may have slipped through human hands, never to be recognized. But you're not going to make that mistake. You know the secret now. You know the exact year. The exact mint mark. The exact error. And you know it could be sitting in your drawer right this very second. Grab every 1984 penny you can find. Hold it up to the light. Tilt it. Stare at Lincoln's ear like your future depends on it, because in this case, it might. Don't assume it's damaged. Don't assume it's worthless. Look closer. Because history has proven that one tiny doubling can transform pocket change into a fortune. This isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the thrill of discovery. The idea that something so small, so ordinary, could hold the power to change your life forever. So the next time you see a dirty old penny, don't roll your eyes. Don't toss it aside. Pick it up. Look closer. Because one man's penny became a $1.4 million miracle, and yours could be next. And if you love learning about these hidden treasures, subscribe right now. Because every week, we uncover more coins that could be sitting in your pocket, your piggy bank, or your coffee can, coins worth millions of dollars. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. A single penny, tossed aside as worthless, but later discovered to be worth nearly $1.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny that once rattled around in someone's pocket change is now one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting. The year was 1976. America was celebrating its bicentennial. Fireworks lit up the skies, flags waved in every corner, and the nation was bursting with patriotic pride. But deep inside the Denver Mint, as millions of ordinary pennies were being struck, something extraordinary slipped through. A mistake so rare, so invisible to the untrained eye, that most people would never even notice. Yet this tiny detail turned a 1-cent coin into $1 million miracle. At first glance, the 1976 penny looks just like any other. Lincoln's familiar profile, the memorial on the reverse, the small D mint mark beneath the date. Nothing unusual, until you look closer. Collectors discovered that certain 1976 pennies were struck with unusual errors, doubling on the date, off-center strikes, and in a few cases, unique die variations that make them almost one of a kind. One lucky collector, who nearly spent his penny at a gas station, decided at the last second to keep it. Years later, that same penny stunned the auction world by selling for nearly $1.50 million. But how could such a small detail create such unimaginable value? That's the part that shook the entire coin community. You see, not every 1976 penny is special. Most are worth just a cent. But a handful were struck on experimental planchets, the blank discs used for coins. Some were created on the wrong type of metal, others with striking errors so dramatic they could never be reproduced. This is what separates the ordinary from the legendary. And once these discoveries hit the spotlight, collectors everywhere began tearing through their jars of old change in search of treasure. And here's the chilling part: these $1 million pennies aren't always sitting in private collections. Some are still floating around in circulation, hiding in old coffee cans, shoeboxes, or tucked away in dusty drawers. One man's forgotten penny became another man's retirement plan. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them, and auction houses are salivating at the chance to offer one. Imagine holding a penny in your palm and realizing you're staring at a check for over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After that record-breaking sale, the price for era pennies from the 70s skyrocketed. Coins that once sold for a few hundred suddenly fetched tens of thousands. And the 1976 with its rare misstrikes, became the crown jewel. Collectors whispered about new finds, stories spread like wildfire, and a frenzy began. Suddenly, everyday people were lining up at coin shops with jars of pennies, hoping lightning would strike twice. Never underestimate the power of details. That tiny D mint mark, the thickness of the date, the way Lincoln's portrait looks slightly off-center. These clues are what separate a penny worth 1 cent from one worth a fortune. And for the 1976 these details mean everything. Start by looking closely at the date and mint mark. If you notice doubling, where the numbers appear to have a faint shadow or duplicate, that's a major sign. Check if the coin looks slightly off-center, with part of the design missing. Or test the weight. Some era pennies were struck on planchets meant for foreign coins, making them slightly lighter or heavier than normal. And always keep an eye on the condition. Even a rare coin loses value if it's too worn, but pristine examples can soar into the millions. You're at home, emptying your pockets, and there it is. A 1976 penny that looks a little different. Maybe the date is doubled. Maybe the strike is off. Maybe the coin feels heavier than usual. In that instant, you could be holding more than just a piece of copper. You could be holding the key to financial freedom, a coin so valuable that it changes your life forever. This isn't just a story about coins. It's a story about chance, about fate, about the thrill of discovering hidden wealth where no one thought to look. A penny worth $1.5 million doesn't just make headlines, it ignites dreams. And right now, one of those dreams could be sitting quietly in your possession. So, before you spend that old penny, take a second look. Study it. Weigh it. Examine every detail. Because the next great coin discovery isn't locked in a museum vault. It could be lying in your pocket, waiting for you to notice. The 1976 penny has already shocked the world once. But there are still more out there. Yours might be next. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of loose change, but when it surfaced, it stunned the coin world and changed one collector's life forever. A single 1979 penny, struck at the Denver Mint, turned out to be worth up to $1.6 million. Most people look at a penny and see nothing but copper-colored pocket change. But this one carried a secret. A secret born inside the U.S. Mint, where a small, almost invisible mistake turned a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Imagine it. You're standing at a convenience store, you hand over a dollar bill, and the cashier slides a few coins back into your palm. You barely glance at them. But hidden in that handful could be a 1979 Lincoln penny, one of the most shocking million-dollar discoveries of modern coin collecting. Collectors were left speechless when word got out. Dealers couldn't believe it. How could a coin minted less than 50 years ago, a coin most of us have tossed into parking meters and gumball machines, suddenly be worth more than a luxury mansion? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The story begins in Denver, 1979. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. Most were ordinary, struck with precision, and destined to disappear into circulation. But somewhere in that year's production line, something unexpected happened. A flaw. A slip in the machinery. A die error so small that thousands of people missed it. And yet, that tiny difference turned one penny into a collector's dream. One man almost threw his away. He had been keeping his spare change in an old coffee can in the garage. When he decided to cash it in, a coin dealer spotted something strange. The mint mark, that tiny D for Denver, looked unusual. It wasn't just slightly off. It carried the telltale signs of an error that only a handful of experts had ever seen. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auctions have seen bidding wars erupt, each buyer convinced they're looking at the rarest penny of their lifetime. And when one of these elusive 1979 pennies finally crossed the auction block, the final hammer price climbed higher and higher, until it reached the unbelievable figure of $1.6 million. Think about that. A coin you might have dropped on the floor of your car, a coin you might have overlooked in a jar, could be worth more than most people's retirement savings. And the best part? Most of the public has no idea this coin even exists. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The secret to identifying this million-dollar penny isn't just the date or the D mint mark. It's the tiny details. Collectors say you need to look closely at the lettering, the mint mark placement, and even the luster of the coin. Small doubling errors, misstrikes, or die variations can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth a fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Now picture this. A collector somewhere out there right now might be sitting on one of these treasures, completely unaware. Every time a 1979 penny appears, it sends shockwaves through the coin community. Because no one knows how many survived. Some believe there could be just a handful left. Others think there are still a few lurking in circulation, waiting to be discovered in pocket change. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He thought he was carrying around just another Lincoln cent, but hidden in his wallet was a ticket to financial freedom. The excitement rippled across forums, coin shows, and collector circles. Could there be another one out there? Could you be the next lucky finder? And here's the truth. These coins don't come with a flashing sign. They look ordinary. But under magnification, the differences are undeniable. That Denver D mint mark tells the story. If you see a 1979 penny with the D mint mark, don't spend it. Don't toss it aside. Get it checked. You might be holding history, and a small piece of copper that could be worth $1.6 million. Collectors call it the thrill of the hunt. Dealers call it the holy grail of modern pennies. But for the everyday person? It's the chance of a lifetime. Imagine pulling one of these from a roll of coins at the bank. Imagine cashing in 1 cent for $1 million. 1979. Then check for the Denver D mint mark just under the date. Study it closely. Is it perfectly struck, or does it look slightly different? Errors often show doubling, misplacement, or unusual shapes. Condition matters too. A well-preserved, sharp coin can multiply in value. And if you suspect you found one, don't try to clean it. That could destroy its worth. Instead, get it graded by a professional coin service. Think about this the next time you reach into your pocket. That coin you're about to drop in a tip jar might be the key to your future. That jar of pennies in the attic could be your family's hidden treasure chest. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of luck, rarity, and the idea that life-changing fortune can be hiding in plain sight, and that's why this story matters. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot, run over by cars, forgotten in the dust. But when it resurfaced, it sold for nearly $2 million. The year was 1973. Richard Nixon was president, gasoline was just 39 cents a gallon, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was busy striking billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. To most people, these pennies were nothing more than spare change you tossed into a coffee can. But hidden among the ordinary copper coins was something extraordinary, something that would one day make history. A single mistake at the mint, a slip in the machinery, turned a common penny into one of the most valuable coins of the 20th century. And what makes it so thrilling is that this mistake wasn't obvious. It's subtle, easy to overlook, hiding in plain sight. Collectors call it the phantom treasure of the 1970s. At first, nobody knew it existed. For years, this penny moved through hands like any other. It jingled in pockets, sat in cash registers, and may have even been taped inside a kid's birthday card. But then, decades later, it surfaced. And when it did, it shocked the entire coin world. One man in Colorado couldn't believe what he was holding. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary 1973 D penny. But as he tilted it under the light, a tiny detail jumped out, something most people would miss. It was sharper, brighter, cleaner than it should have been. An error so rare that experts had only seen whispers of it before. His heart pounded as he sent it in for grading. When the results came back, the news spread like wildfire. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. A penny struck in 1973 in Denver had just been certified as one of the rarest errors of the decade, and its value wasn't measured in cents anymore. It was measured in millions. But here's where the story gets even stranger. This wasn't just a matter of age. There were plenty of 1973 pennies out there, tens of millions of them. No, what made this one different was its composition and strike. A small batch had been struck on the wrong planchet, an experimental error the mint never intended to leave the building. Most of them were caught and destroyed. But one, maybe two, slipped out. And that single survivor became the stuff of legend. At auction, the bidding war was fierce. Prices skyrocketed past expectations. Collectors who had waited their whole lives for a chance at a coin like this weren't going to let it go without a fight. The final hammer price? A staggering $1.8 million for a coin that, to the untrained eye, looked like pocket change. But what happened next stunned everyone. Once the sale hit the headlines, people all across the country began tearing through their jars of pennies. Families sat at kitchen tables, poring over old coins with magnifying glasses. Pawn shops were flooded with hopeful treasure hunters. And every collector knew the next great discovery could come from anywhere. This tiny coin had awakened a dream. Because if one 1973 D penny could be worth millions, who's to say another isn't still out there, sitting quietly in a shoebox, waiting to be found? Here's what you need to look for. First, check the mint mark. The letter D tells you it came from Denver, but that alone isn't enough. What matters is the weight and the strike. The rare errors were struck on planchets that don't match the standard copper zinc composition. Instead of 3.11 grams, these come in at slightly different weights, and the sound when dropped is different, almost ringing, compared to the dull thud of a normal penny. Next, look closely at the details. The Lincoln bust should appear sharper than usual, almost proof-like in its clarity. And under magnification, you may notice slight doubling in certain areas, a quirk of the striking process that adds even more value. Don't dismiss a coin just because it looks ordinary. The collector who found the $1 million penny almost gave it away in a handful of change. He trusted his instincts, took a second look, and discovered a fortune. Imagine it. One day you're counting out pennies for a cup of coffee, the next day you're holding a ticket to a wealthy future. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's why dealers and collectors chase these legends with relentless passion. So tonight, after this video, go dig through that old coffee can. Open the drawer where you've been tossing coins for years. Take out every 1973 penny you can find. Because somewhere in this country, sitting unnoticed, there could be another $1 million treasure waiting, and who knows, it might just be in your hands. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became a $1 million miracle. The year was 1981. Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president, MTV had just launched, and Americans were tossing pennies into jars without a second thought. But hidden among those copper cents, the U.S. Mint made a mistake. A small detail, invisible to most eyes, created one of the rarest Lincoln pennies ever discovered. And today, that same coin has been valued at up to $1 million. A coin you've probably seen thousands of times, slipped through your fingers, sat unnoticed in someone's pocket change, and nearly disappeared forever. But this isn't just any penny. This is a coin so rare, so elusive, that collectors are losing sleep chasing after it. Dealers are scrambling to buy it. And stories of people turning pocket change into small fortunes are spreading across the coin world like wildfire. The answer lies in the mysterious world of minting errors. See, in 1981, the Philadelphia Mint produced Lincoln cents without a mint mark, which was standard at the time. But during this transitional year, the Mint was also preparing to switch designs, equipment, and most importantly, coin planchets. A small number of these pennies came out with irregularities, striking flaws, or surfaces so pristine they defied belief. One collector's discovery shocked experts, proving that these ordinary 1981 no-mint mark pennies could actually be $1 million treasures. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a major auction, one of these coins sold for an astronomical figure. The crowd was in disbelief as the price climbed higher and higher. When the hammer finally dropped, it had reached nearly $1 million. Collectors gasped. Dealers whispered. And the penny that nobody thought twice about had just entered the history books. The tiniest details make all the difference. On the surface, a 1981 no-mint mark penny looks like any other. It weighs 3.11 grams, it's copper, it has Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing unusual, right? But under close inspection, a trained eye can spot what separates the common from the extraordinary. The sharpness of the strike. The absence of wear. The luster that glows like it was struck yesterday. And sometimes an error, like a doubled die, a weak strike, or misaligned lettering, can turn it from pocket change into a life-changing payday. Most people never notice these things. They glance, they spend, they ignore. But those who look closer, those who know what to look for, they're the ones who uncover a fortune. Stories of everyday people finding these rare coins are not myths. One man in the Midwest sold his for enough to pay off his home. Another collector picked one up in an estate sale for less than $1, only to have it appraised at hundreds of thousands. These aren't fairy tales. They're proof that rare treasures are still hiding in plain sight. 1981. No mint mark beneath the date. That's critical. Next, look at the coin's condition. The closer it is to uncirculated, the better. Flawless red luster, minimal scratches, and razor-sharp details mean serious money. Finally, examine closely for errors, doubled lettering, misaligned features, or unusual strike marks. These are the tiny imperfections that skyrocket value. Now, here's where collectors get it wrong. Many people think every 1981 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. That's not true. Most are only worth a cent. The difference is in the grade, the error, and the condition. But for the select few that meet the criteria, the value is staggering, hundreds of thousands, even $1 million. And that's why dealers are on the hunt. So, take a moment tonight. Go to that old jar of coins in the back of your closet. Open that dusty drawer where you toss your change. Because right now, sitting unnoticed, could be a penny that changes your life. Imagine pulling out a coin, the same coin you almost used to pay for coffee, and realizing it's worth more than your car, your house, maybe your entire retirement fund. Collectors were shocked. Experts were floored. And all because one tiny copper coin held a secret that no one expected.